G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Well, Josh, thanks so much for making the time to catch up today. Really looking forward to this discussion. And as I just touched on, systems is such an important area to help small businesses turn into large businesses. Why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction into who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Rob, thanks for having me on the show. So my name is Josh Fonger. I am a Christian business coach, consultant, and advisor. And I really focus on helping men grow their businesses, really their top lines, their bottom lines, and I would say their finish lines, which I call the kingdom impact. And at this point, I've been doing this for over 15 years now. So clients around the world, and I think I'm over 1,000 clients at this point.
Fantastic. You must have some good systems to be able to manage 1,000 clients.
Well, if you're doing it over 15 years, you can just run the numbers. But yeah, a lot of on-sites, a lot of off-sites, a lot of remote, a variety of industries.
Great. So tell me, who are the typical clients that come to work with you, and why do they look for you? What's typically the pain point that would trigger a conversation with somebody like you?
Yeah, so I would say over the last 15 years, I've really narrowed my focus from working with just any small business that wants to get more efficient, more profitable, more scalable, and really specialized my coaching and consulting work with men primarily who are Christians, and they want to integrate their faith into their business. And so, yes, they have a profit motive, and yes, they want to grow it, which is biblical, right? Be fruitful, multiply. But they also want their work to have a kingdom impact. They want to actually make their work their ministry. And so, I would say, as a business consultant, what makes me unique is that I'm actually trying to make them run their business, by the book, so to speak, and make sure that their business actually makes that extra impact that they want beyond just a bottom line.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. So tell me a little bit about how you go about doing that. I mean, obviously systems is a big focus for you. Tell me about your system or your process that you typically take clients through. Where do you start?
Yeah. So what I start with is an assessment. So I really want to go as deep as possible to understand all aspects of their business, of their financials, sales, inside sales, outside sales, marketing, branding, operations, admin, like the kind of the whole picture. And I also want a series of goals. Like, what are their objectives? So as a business coach, I don't want to project on my goals onto them and my vision onto them. I want to know their vision and to make sure that we have a reasonable plan to make that happen. So once I have those goals, then I build out a plan to make that happen. And then I take them through a framework, because I found that working on a lot of systems to make companies grow is that your business will actually cap out on growth if you don't have a vision that will go beyond that, and you as a leader don't have the character and the wisdom and the leadership development to raise the bar as well. And so I've seen a lot of companies where they've flatlined with great systems, but not great leadership and not great vision and not great strategy. And so as I start to work with the client, I want to make sure that they're growing as a leader each session. They're growing in weak spot or a blind spot in their business, whether that is sales or admin or IT or finance or whatever it might be. So we're going to grow in those areas. And then I make sure that I run parallel paths is what I call it. So whatever their strategic long-term vision is, we make sure we're always making progress. And whatever their short-term, what happened last week, what happened the last 2 weeks, we're getting those out of the way and solving those problems in real time. And so it's it's a pretty comprehensive approach, but I've done a lot of sessions, and I know that if you just work on high level things, the day-to-day things are going to eat you up. And if you just work on the day-to-day things, you never actually make the progress. And so I try to hold all those things into a session and then, hold them accountable, right? Because everyone likes to talk business, but it's hard to get them to actually follow through.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess you touch on the long term and the short term and the need to balance the focus on both. How do you string those together in a reliable way so that you don't lose track of the big picture while you're in the day to day? I mean, is there, I guess, a cadence of needing to check back in on the big picture, or what's your recommendations there?
Yeah, I would say once a month, go back to the big picture, make sure that we're still on track. And then on the sessions in between, make sure that we're handling the immediate needs. And the big picture is always tailored back into daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly goals and tasks to get done. So like if you're going to, let's just say, build a new website, that doesn't just happen in a day. There's certain aspects. There's going to be maybe some dreaming and some research and just kind of some, seeing what other people are doing. Then after that, you might go out and find a web developer if it's not going to be yourself. And so there's components, and that long-term project is still out there, but you have to break it down to the components if you're going to actually get there. Hence the need for accountability and homework. So the homework that's here this week is going to lead to the homework that's going to happen next week, so to speak.
Yeah. And look, as far as accountability goes, do you see that as part of your role in working with business owners?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, you would have asked me 15 years ago when I was flying out to different companies all the time. I thought, well, I taught them something great. I gave them a great plan. I gave them a strategy. They agreed. They said yes. But I realized it just wasn't happening. And so a huge part of it is holding their feet to the fire, finding out why they didn't execute. And I think even more today than ever before, with the amount of distractions and the amount of really great information that people can find really good information and really good plans anywhere and everywhere, but actually working with someone like me who has the experience of implementing it and actually knows the steps to take and can hold you accountable, I think is hugely valuable for those who, they know the idea, sounds great, but it's one thing to know it and one thing to do it.
Yeah. I must say, my experience as a business coach has been that the accountability side of things is often where a lot of the value is. We've found it Grow a Small Business. We've put together a business transformation program. And, it began with a lot of information. And I guess we've recognized that, the information is really, maybe 10 or 20% of what's important for business owners. It's really, I guess, working, together with other business owners and with various coaches to put some accountability around what people are doing and, some timelines so that things actually get done. It seems to make a lot of difference, no doubt about it. So tell me, Josh, do you have a good sort of example or case study that perhaps you could talk people through just to start bringing it to life a bit? What happens when a business owner comes to work with you, and what sort of results were you able to help them achieve?
Sure. Yeah. And I will say that it depends on what they want. So some companies, I've had client companies go from 0 to 10 million or 14 million to 35 million. And I have other companies that have purposely wanted to stay smaller. And I was thinking about this show, and that's the kind of example I want to talk about. Was actually a client who runs a reverse vasectomy clinic, and so for him, he was very busy. He was stressed out. He didn't have his systems under order, and so it was difficult for people to do payments, difficult for appointment setting, difficult logistics, and he wasn't able to, in this case, do work as ministry, which is what he wanted to do. And so he wanted to give consistent, high quality results to his patients, and he wanted to have a consistent high quality to his internal operations, so he could open up new locations, right? And so we had to develop those systems to make that happen. And for him, it freed him up from the day to day that he was stuck in. It allowed him to do more of the surgeries, which he wanted to do. It allowed him to make more profit, which is what he wanted to do as well. So he could give more of away, and it freed him up to have the time to actually, in this case, share the gospel with every single person who came in to his clinic. And so it's a very unique clinic, but it got to make the biggest impact that he could make, which was beyond just how do I make more money with this, but how do I run it more efficiently? How do I run it more productively? How do I have the time for my family and my health, and do it through my work, right? And so it was really a great experience to work with that client.
Want specific advice to help you get your business through its #1 growth challenge? Book a free 20-minute growth chat with me, Troy, the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'll recommend some resources which will help you grow your business with ease so you can live the lifestyle you've signed up for. Go to growasmallbusiness.com and click on Growth Chat.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, no, that's a really interesting set of goals. And how much, when you were working with that particular client, how much was, I guess, you assisting with the planning versus assisting with the accountability and implementation side of things?
Yeah, so he already came to me with a really strong vision, and he already came to me as obviously a proficient surgeon. That wasn't my skill set, but so I came in there saying, "Hey, here's a way to organize the business, and here's the way to make it more efficient." And I just remember early on with some conflicts where I said, "Well, if you did this and this and this, you could scale it here, and you could make a lot more money." He said, "Well, that's not what my main goal. So I'm going to taper that plan back, or I'm going to adjust that plan here." So that was actually a good lesson in me realizing that if the owner has a true vision in mind for what they're trying to achieve, sometimes that means maximizing profit as much as possible so you can hire more and serve more and this and that. And other times it's not. And that was an example where he actually said, "I'd rather grow slower, and I'd rather grow with this intentionality and then grow other locations." And maybe it's a little bit slower. Maybe it's not as profitable. Maybe I could, in his case, he could have raised his prices quite a bit, but he's like, "My goal is to serve more people. So I don't want to." And so I think having that freedom from the desire to make the most money was allowing him to instead say, "My desire is to make the biggest impact." And so I think those kind of owners, those kind of businesses are unique, but they're out there.
I suppose the other component to what you do, and just interested again, I guess using this case study to talk to, but you mentioned developing the leadership skills of your client. Was that much of a factor in this particular engagement, or?
Not in this particular one. So, that would be, things in terms of character are going to be like stewardship and courage and excellence and love and impact and honesty. So kind of, making sure that we're all reminded of what we're trying to achieve, because how we work impacts us, but of course it works its way down and to the customer. So that really matters. But in this case, he was bringing those with him. In other cases, that's the issue. Like I have a couple clients right now where as they grow as leaders, as they grow in their integrity, as they grow in their courage, their company's going to grow. They're going to have less employee issues, less customer issues, less quality issues. And so, each client is, I've built a lot of systems, a lot of programs, a lot of training material. And when I do one-on-one coaching, I really want to get to know you, and I want to get to know your business. And, I can give lots of advice, but really the only advice that matters is the one that you need to hear today, right now, to take that next step. You don't need to hear me spout out 1,000 things. And so I try to be really intentional about, this is what you need to hear for you to make that next step, for you to achieve this vision. And so oftentimes less is more in terms of making that progress.
Josh, if you had to point to one thing that you think our audience should take away from the conversation today, something practical they can be thinking about when they're back in their business, what stands out for you?
Yeah, I would say truly make sure that you are playing the right game with your business. You're putting score, you're making points on the right scoreboard, because ultimately, and I could just share a Bible verse here, is like, this is Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for he will either hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. And there are 2,350 verses in the Bible about money. And the reason why, it's so connected to your faith and your heart. And in business, this is a major stumbling block for a lot of people. And I work with a lot of them where they think they're doing well because the money's going up, their time's going up, their freedom, so to speak, is going up, the stress is going down, and they haven't started playing the right game. And I just want to make sure that everyone who's watching this at least considers, in light of eternity, am I playing the right game of my business? And work is good, profit is good. It's good to do good work. It's good to help others, but just make sure you're doing the right work.
Yeah, that really nicely put. Thank you. So finally, Josh, if what you've said has resonated with people today and they're interested to find out a bit more about you, where's the best place to look?
Yeah, I would go to my website. It's Fourth Soil Ventures. So that's the parable about the four soils, fourthsoilventures.com.
fourthsoilventures.com. Fantastic. Well, Josh, thank you so much for your time. That was really insightful and some really good bits of knowledge for us to take away. And appreciate you coming onto the podcast.
Very good. Hey, thanks, Rob.
We'd greatly appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to leave our podcast a review on iTunes. If you don't have an account, simply follow us on Spotify. You'll help other small business owners find the cast and valuable content our guests share.